Hey guys, I'm back with a review of the third figure in the Predators Series 1 release by NECA. This is the Classic Predator. I hadn't initially picked this guy up because there's a lot of plans to re-release this figure as the Predator 1 Predator later on this year and then beginning next year. But I figured, I've seen a lot of figures lately that are supposed to be released and haven't been released, or don't get released when they're supposed to, and then sometimes they don't also have money to get them. So I figured I might as well just pick them up while I can afford them and enjoy them, and either I sell them when the new one comes out if it's much better, or I just have an extra Predator in my collection. This is a classic, and he is a bit different from the other two. I was kind of surprised. I figured it'd be pretty much the same figure, but the quality on him actually is lacking a bit, which is sad because I was very, very impressed with the other two Predators. And I heard a lot of good things about this guy too. Getting him out of the package is just not quite as nice. I'm saying this, but he's still an excellent figure. He's still one of the best things NECA has ever put out. It's not the same. If you take a look here at the paint apps on his stomach, especially is where I notice it, he's missing bits of netting on there, and it really showed. And a lot of people had complained about the Berserker Predator's paint job, but this one actually, I feel if the netting's incomplete on him, that shows much more than having the colors slightly off, or not having the right wash on the figure. There's a couple other places where the paint suffers as well, around the joints. It's actually hard to see, but there's one back here on his back, up here along this ridge, and granted it is covered by two pieces of armor, but it's just missing paint completely. It's just the yellow plastic that the figure was made out of. And another couple quality control things, or I guess the big one at least, is when I got him out of the package, his little butt flap skirt thing actually was coming off. I mean, all it took was a little bit of super glue, but it's just kind of disappointing to open the package and find it like that. Like I said, easy fix, but still. Let's take a look at the rest of them. His articulation is pretty much the same as the other two. He has the ball-jointed head, ball-jointed shoulders, I guess the hinge swivel wrist or elbow, ball-jointed hand. The waist is cut V up here at the crotch, swivel in the upper leg, the bend swivel in the knee, and then ball jointed feet. And unlike the other two Predators in this series, the ball-jointed feet actually do get full range of motion. The other two were hindered because they had the boot on there, so they really only ended up being able to swivel. Now, I'd thought when I looked at those, it was probably because they were going to plan to reuse the same body and have the normal Predator feet on there. And I think I'm right on that one. The face is really good on this one. I know there's been a couple, I think McFarlane mostly tried to do the original Predator, and theirs was pretty off. This one does look really nice. They've hid the seam in there for the jaws, because the jaws are a separate piece so that they can just switch them with the closed jaws when they re-release it like that. And actually, I believe the mask itself will actually plug into the same hole for their own, production that they do on these. But they hid the seam in his jowls, kind of, in the saggy droopingness under his eyes and kind of around the sides of his head. So it kind of follows the lines of the character itself, which makes it a little less obvious. If you've seen the, I can actually bring him in, the wolf figure from AVP, he has this horrible, horrible cut line across his forehead. It's so obvious. So I'm glad they fixed that. Another interesting comparison on this figure as opposed to the other figures in this wave is the way the dreadlocks attach. These ones are much shorter, but they are much more clumped together. Now I'm finding all individual ones, but there are several that are clumped together lower down. And the connection up at the head, you can see the ridges of the front head, the solid plastic, and the dreadlocks come in, And I don't know if you could catch this on camera, but where the dreadlocks attach to the head, there is a piece of black rubber going around. So all the dreadlocks are on this black rubber piece. The other figures, by comparison, if you take Berserker here, you can see there's almost just holes in there that the dreadlocks are attached to. I think this looks much cleaner, and I'm really surprised they didn't do it for the Classic. It doesn't seem like it would have been much harder to do it for the Classic than it would be to do it for the Berserker. The Classic does come with some extra accessories that the other figures did not. He has his dual blades here on his gauntlet. They stick out pretty far. This is all the way retracted. And you could take them, and they are fairly stiff. I don't know if that will go away with time. But they do pull out to a nice length. They look really nice. It's very nicely made. They feel fairly strong, which kind of surprises me, because I always am afraid these things are going to break right off, but these actually feel tougher than the blades that come out on the other two figures. Also, he comes with the removable backpack and shoulder cannon, and it's a little tricky to get on past the dreadlocks. Let me see if I can do it on camera here. There's two pegs. There's a peg up here at the top, and more of actually a clip down here at the bottom. The first peg goes in this hole here, and the clip goes back here. So just take it, snap it in there. I think I got it. So that's him with his backpack mounted. It's a little bulky, but I do like that you can remove it. It's a pretty neat little feature on there. It's well sculpted. Even has a little cable here. I'll get into the cables in a second. The gun has a pretty good range of motion. Actually, is more articulated than Berserker's. It can swivel. The whole top cannon is on a ball joint, and the lower part is on a swivel here. I believe Berserker's cannon was just a single ball joint. So this actually gives it a nice range of motion. I'll probably leave it off when I display him, just because unmasked, it's not like he's going to be using the cannon without his mask on. So when they do release a masked version, or probably the Predator 1 with the mask is what I'll probably wait for, I will display him with the cannon on. One nice thing, as I was mentioning before with the wires or pipes or whatever we want to call them, are that they're really nice and big and solid. By comparison, as I mentioned before, the Wolf Predator that they released for AVP2. And, I mean, this almost isn't a fair comparison to compare these two figures. Just the quality is not even close. But it's what NECA's given us before, so might as well take a look at it. You can see here is the wire connecting his armor to his shoulder. It is tiny. This has actually been glued by me about 3 times. For the most part, because he has a ball joint in his arm, and if you move it too far, it snaps the wire. And it's really hard to remember that it's there because it's so tiny. You don't even think about it. You go to pose his arm and it just snaps in half. The Classic has these very nice thick wires that I don't think you could overextend. No, I don't think there's any position you could put his arm in where it would overextend that wire. Same with this one here on the back. It's all the way straight, and it's all the way bent, and there's still some slack in there. So that's really nice. Oh, this cannon's falling off. I guess I didn't put it on too well. I really do like that they made that a little more robust. They are, once again, a little bulkier, but it works. He has a lot of soft rubber armor pieces on him. He's got these two on the side. He has the flap back here, which actually has a nice little bag attached to it. These parts down here are actually hard plastic, but they are soft rubber knee pads, which look really nice. This whole upper part here is soft plastic. I can't really tell if this is soft plastic or not. This part up here is, however, which is part of the reason I think the cannon doesn't mount quite as well, because this is flexible, and I believe this is soft as well. So it does a good bit of flexible armor on there, so you can give him a lot of poses. And here's Classic up with 2 of the other Predators I have. Here's with the Falconer, which is from the same series, and the wolf, which I've compared him to several times in this video already. Compared to Falconer, he actually does stand a little bit shorter, and I think most of that is from the feet. I think the feet are much thinner than the ones on the Falconer and the Berserker. I commented in my last review that the Berserker and the Falconer were not much taller than Wolf, if they were at all. Because Wolf, you can't really get him standing straight up, and all my approximations, it looked like they were about the same height. But this Classic actually does stand a little bit shorter. Obviously you can't tell here because Falconer is bent pretty low into a stance, but they actually are a little bit shorter, and I assume that when they release the rest of the Predator waves, they'll probably keep using this Classic body, or at least the feet, or whatever else makes him the height he is, as compared to the new Predator character molds. So they probably will all end up being to the correct scale. One last quick thing I found since I did my last review of the Falconer and the Berserker is I had commented that these blades don't stay in very well. And I found on the Sideshow Freak forum, and I do not know the name of whoever had posted it, and I do apologize to them if they see this video, but somebody on there had recommended taking the blade out and just putting a little bit of super glue here on this nub at the end. And basically, while the glue is still wet, put it into the gauntlet and take it out a couple times, and then let it sit and dry. And when it's done, it ends up with a little extra thickness there, a little extra coat of super glue, and it sits in there much, much better. It doesn't have the tendency to fall out as badly anymore, and as far as I could tell, no damage to the figure whatsoever. So if you do pick these guys up, I would recommend that fix. So overall, the Classic Predator really is a nice addition to this line. He's very well sculpted, he looks pretty good. My issues with him are fairly minor. He is probably the worst of the three, at least in my opinion, but he's still a really, really good figure, and still really impressive, and by no means is worst of the three is still light years ahead of most other figures. So definitely recommend picking this guy up, especially because he does seem to be the rarer of the three. From what I've heard, or at least the shipment at my local store, it was 3 Berserkers, 3 Falconers, and only 2 of these guys. And it sounds like a lot of people are having the same experience elsewhere. So these guys seem to be the harder ones to get your hands on. So if you do find him, I'd recommend picking him up. Alright, bye.